At a water park, Caleb Schwab climbed the world's tallest slide, expecting one last rush, not his final ride. In seconds, a family vacation became a nightmare that changed amusement parks forever. And his story is only the surface. Below it are more water park disasters where fun turned into pure terror. Will you think twice about your next trip to a water park? Number 1. Caleb Schwab. Caleb Schwab was only 10 years old when he climbed the stairs to Verruckt, the world's tallest water slide. To him, it was supposed to be a summer thrill, the kind of ride a kid brags about afterward. But in just a few seconds, that climb turned into the last ride of his life. Verruckt didn't just look dangerous. Its name literally meant insane. Standing 168 feet tall, it promised speed, terror, and a drop unlike anything else in the world. But behind the hype, there were warnings. Test rafts had gone airborne. The ride had been delayed. Changes were made. Then, somehow, it still opened to the public. On August 7th, 2016, Caleb boarded a raft with 2 adult women. The gates opened. The raft dropped. And then the nightmare everyone should have seen coming finally happened. The raft lifted off the slide, and Caleb never made it safely to the bottom. A family day at a water park became a tragedy that shook the entire country. Afterward, Verruckt was shut down, dismantled, and Kansas changed its amusement ride laws. But none of that could undo what happened. No investigation, no headline, and no new safety rule could bring Caleb back to his parents. He was just a little boy chasing one big thrill on a ride that should have never been allowed to run. Number 2. Gene Mulvihill. Gene Mulvihill didn't build Action Park to feel safe. He built it to feel dangerous. In 1978, deep in Vernon, New Jersey, he opened a park where teenagers weren't just passengers, they were test pilots. No soft edges, no careful rules, just speedwater concrete and the kind of freedom that made kids feel invincible. Then the injuries started piling up. The Alpine slide sent riders down a mountain in tiny wheeled carts with handbrakes that didn't always listen. Some people crawled away bleeding. Others didn't walk away at all. In 1980, 19-year-old George Larson Jr. flew off the track, hit his head on rocks, and died days later. The park kept going. Across the property, the wave pool earned a darker nickname, the Grave Pool. The waves were powerful, the water was crowded, and lifeguards were pulling people out constantly. George Lopez drowned there in 1982. That same year, Jeffrey Nathan stepped onto an electrified grate after falling from a kayak and went into cardiac arrest. Action Park was no longer just reckless. It was lethal. But the most disturbing part is how many people still came back. They came for the fear. They came for the stories. They came because surviving Action Park felt like a badge of honor. And that was Gene Mulvihill's twisted genius. He sold danger as fun until families were left grieving, and America finally realized the wildest water park ever built had been hurting people all along. Number 3. Tilikum. Long before Tilikum became infamous, he was taken from the ocean and turned into a performer. Crowds saw a giant orca splashing on command. Trainers saw power, intelligence, and risk. But behind the applause, something darker was building inside the tanks. The first warning came in 1991 at Sealand of the Pacific. A young trainer named Kelty Byrne slipped into the pool, and the orcas would not let her escape. Years later at SeaWorld, Orlando, a man named Daniel P. Dukes was found dead inside Tilikum's tank after sneaking into the park overnight. By then, Tilikum was no longer just a show animal. He was a headline waiting to happen. That headline arrived on February 24th, 2010. Dawn Brancheau was one of SeaWorld's most experienced trainers. She knew Tilikum. She had worked beside him, trusted him, and performed with him in front of families who came expecting wonder. Then, during a post-show interaction, Tilikum pulled her into the water. In front of horrified witnesses, the performance became a desperate fight no one could stop. Dawn didn't walk into that pool thinking she was facing a monster. She saw an animal she had trained, cared for, and trusted. Yet after her death, the applause around SeaWorld sounded different. Tilikum's story no longer felt like entertainment. It became a warning about captivity control and the dangerous illusion that a wild animal can be turned into a harmless attraction. Number 4. Formosa Fun Coast. The party was supposed to look like a dream. Thousands of young people packed into Formosa Fun Coast in Taiwan for Color Play Asia, dancing under bright lights while clouds of colored powder filled the air. Phones were up. Music was blasting. For a moment, it looked like the perfect summer night. Near the stage, the crowd stood inside a drained swimming pool, shoulder to shoulder, covered in powder made from cornstarch. Nobody in that crowd knew they were breathing and dancing inside something dangerously flammable. The colors made it beautiful. The heat, the lights, and the packed bodies made it a trap. Then the sky caught fire. In seconds, the powder ignited, and a fireball rolled across the crowd like a wave from hell. People who had been laughing moments earlier were suddenly screaming, running, falling, and trying to tear burning clothes from their skin. Some victims were carried out on inflatable rings because there were not enough stretchers. When the flames disappeared, the nightmare stayed. Nearly 500 people were injured, many with burns over most of their bodies, and 15 would eventually die. The park closed, the organizer was convicted, and the videos spread around the world. A place built for fun became a permanent reminder that even the brightest party can turn deadly when safety is treated like an afterthought. Number 5. Dreamworld River Rapids. A family ride should never need a hero. But on October 25th, 2016, at Dreamworld in Australia, Luke Dorset found himself trapped inside a nightmare that no one in the raft saw coming. The Thunder River Rapids ride looked harmless enough, a circular boat moving water, a few bumps, the kind of attraction families choose when they want fun without fear. Beneath the surface, the system was already failing. One of the ride's main water pumps stopped working. The water level dropped, and a raft became stranded near the conveyor belt. Then Luke's raft drifted forward with 6 people on board. There was no dramatic warning, no time to escape. Just a sudden collision that shoved the raft into the machinery. Chaos exploded in seconds. Luke was with his sister Kate Goodchild and his partner Ruzi Aragi. Cindy Lowe was also on the raft. 2 children survived, including Luke's young niece. Reports later recognized Luke for helping save her in those final moments, a split-second act of love in the middle of disaster. The ride was shut down and later demolished, but the silence it left behind was heavier than any headline. Investigators found serious safety failures, and Dreamworld's parent company was fined millions. Still, for the families, the numbers meant little. Luke Dorset boarded a water ride expecting laughter. He left behind a story of courage, grief, and a question every theme park should fear: why did it take 4 deaths to stop the ride? Number 6. Lane Graves. The fireworks were still glowing over Disney World when 2-year-old Lane Graves walked toward the edge of Seven Seas Lagoon. Around him, families were relaxing outside the Grand Floridian Resort, the kind of place parents choose because it feels safe, magical, and far away from anything that could hurt their children. Lane was only in shallow water, close to the shore, doing what little kids do on vacation, playing, exploring, trusting the world around him. Then the water moved. An alligator lunged from the lagoon and grabbed him before anyone could understand what was happening. In one horrifying second, Disney's perfect image shattered. His father, Matt Graves, rushed into the water and fought with everything he had to pull his son free. No parent thinks about danger in a moment like that. You just move, you grab, you fight. But the alligator disappeared beneath the surface, with Lane leaving his family standing on the shoreline, trapped in the longest night of their lives. Search teams worked for hours before Lane's body was recovered the next day. Afterward, Disney added stronger warnings and barriers around its lagoons. But the change came too late for one little boy from Nebraska. Lane's story still hurts because he wasn't chasing danger. He was just a child playing near the water, in a place where his parents thought magic would protect him. Number 7. China Wave Pool Tsunami. Nobody walked into that pool expecting to run for their life. It was a hot summer day in Longjing, China, and hundreds of visitors were floating, laughing, and cooling off inside Yulong Shuyun Water Amusement Park's wave pool. The attraction was supposed to mimic the ocean, playful, controlled, and safe. Instead of gentle waves, the machine suddenly unleashed something violent. A massive wall of water surged through the crowded pool, tossing swimmers off their floats and slamming people into each other. In seconds, a family attraction turned into a scene that looked less like a water park and more like a disaster movie. Footage of the moment went viral for a reason. You can see the wave rise, hear the screams, and watch people scramble toward the edge while others are dragged backward by the force. Some were thrown onto the pavement. Others were left injured in the shallow water, stunned by how quickly fun had become panic. Officials later said a power cut damaged the electronic equipment controlling the wave machine, causing the pool to generate waves far larger than intended. 44 people were injured, with some suffering fractured ribs and other serious trauma. No one died, but everyone who was there learned the same terrifying lesson. Sometimes the ocean doesn't have to be real to nearly kill you. Number 8. Transval Park Collapse. Valentine's night in Moscow was freezing outside, but inside Transval Park, it felt like another world. Families floated in warm pools, couples laughed under the glass dome, and children splashed beneath a roof that made the whole place feel bright, tropical, and safe. Above them, that roof was hiding a deadly weakness. Transval Park had only been open for about 2 years, yet the massive dome over the water area was already carrying the burden of bad design. Nobody in the pools could see it. Nobody heard a warning loud enough to matter. Then the ceiling began to fail. The collapse came down like the sky itself had broken. Glass, steel, and concrete crashed into the water, attractions crushing people where they stood and trapping others under twisted wreckage. The screams echoed through steam dust and freezing air as survivors searched for the people they had been swimming beside moments earlier. Rescuers spent days digging through the ruins. By the end, 28 people were dead, including children, and nearly 200 others were injured. Transval Park never reopened. A chapel and memorial now stand near the site, but the name still feels haunted, a reminder that sometimes the danger isn't in the water below you, but in the ceiling everyone forgot to fear. Number 9. Oceana Waterworld Fire. Before a single guest ever screamed on its slides, Oceana was already being called one of Sweden's most exciting new water parks. It sat inside the famous Liseberg amusement complex, nearly finished, polished by years of construction, and built to welcome thousands of families looking for warmth, water, and escape. That dream began to burn on the morning of February 12, 2024. Smoke rose from the unfinished structure, then flames swallowed the slides with terrifying speed. Black clouds poured into the sky over Gothenburg as workers ran from the site. The park had not opened yet, but the disaster was already playing out like a scene from a blockbuster. Inside the chaos, one man was missing. Patrick Gilholm, a construction manager tied closely to the project. Firefighters could not simply rush in. Parts of the building had become unstable, and every minute carried the risk of collapse. Outside crews fought the fire, while his family co-workers and an entire city waited for news no one wanted to hear. Days later, Patrick's body was found inside the ruins. Investigators later linked the fire to work being done near one of the water slides, and the damage was so severe that much of Oceana had to be rebuilt. The saddest part is that this was supposed to be a beginning, a grand opening, a celebration, a place for families. Instead, Oceana's first memory became smoke sirens and one man who never made it home. Number 10. Napa High Waterworld accident. The seniors from Napa High were only days away from graduation. One last class trip, one last afternoon together, one last chance to feel like kids before life pulled them in different directions. At Waterworld, USA, in Concord, California, the sun was out, the park was loud, and nobody thought a tradition could turn deadly. Near closing time, a crowd rushed toward the bonsai pipeline. The plan was clogging packing onto the slide together to beat the classes before them. But the ride was never built for dozens of teenagers at once. As the weight gathered near the top, a section of fiberglass suddenly tore apart, sending students plunging more than 30 feet toward the ground below. The scene became chaos in seconds. Classmates who had been laughing moments earlier were screaming for help. Some hit wooden supports. Others landed on concrete and landscaping. 32 students were injured, and 18-year-old Quimby Galotti never made it to graduation. The trip was supposed to mark the end of high school. Instead, it became the day an entire class grew up all at once. Number 11. Disney River Country. Disney once built a water park that looked less like a resort attraction and more like a hidden swimming hole in the woods. River Country had wooden bridges, rocky slides, lake water, and a wild, old-fashioned charm that made families feel like they had found Disney's secret backyard. That charm came with risks no postcard ever showed. In 1980, an 11-year-old boy swam there during a family trip and later became seriously ill. Doctors linked his death to amoebic meningoencephalitis, a rare brain infection connected to warm, fresh water. Disney said similar cases had happened elsewhere in Florida that same month, but the shadow stayed over the park. 2 more tragedies followed. In 1982, a teenage boy went down a 60-foot slide and vanished beneath the landing water. Years later, in 1989, another teen was swimming with classmates when he slipped under unnoticed. By the time someone felt a body beneath the surface, the fun had already turned into a memory no family could escape. River Country kept operating until 2001, then closed and never reopened. For years, abandoned footage of its empty slides and green water made the place feel almost haunted. It wasn't just an old Disney park left behind. It was a reminder that even the happiest places can have corners where the laughter stops. Number 12. Kira Hill. A birthday party should have ended with cake photos and a tired little girl going home with stories to tell. Instead, 11-year-old Kira Hill walked into Liquid Leisure in Berkshire and never came back. The park looked like summer itself, inflatable obstacles, open water, excited kids and families trusting that someone was watching closely enough. The danger was hidden below the surface. Kira entered a designated swimming area where the water dropped deep, visibility was poor, and safety warnings were not clear enough. When she got into trouble, confusion spread faster than action. Staff searched, people waited, and the minutes that could have saved her began slipping away. By the time professional help was fully involved, the day had already turned into every parent's worst fear. Kira was later recovered from the water, but it was too late. In 2025, a coroner ruled that she had been unlawfully killed, pointing to serious health and safety failures at the park. Her story does not need explosions, giant waves, or a record-breaking slide to be terrifying. It hurts because it was quiet. A child vanished beneath ordinary water during an ordinary party in a place where safety should never have been optional. Never have been optional. Never.